we were lied to, as over the past several weeks and days, multiple reports came out revealing that Nick Robertson was on the trade block and that a trade was imminent. Brad Treliving finally broke the silence and revealed the truth on Nick Robertson's future in Toronto, as well as giving some very interesting details on Max Pacioretty. So I'm going to break down the exact quotes and what it could mean going forward and how we were lied to over the past several weeks. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that button. About 70% of you guys who are watching aren't subscribed, and we're trying to catch Habs Digest, who are at 14,000 subscribers. We can't be behind them. So if you want to help us pass them, make sure to hit that subscribe button. But Darius, more news is coming out today, and Brad Treliving broke the silence. He hasn't spoken out in a very long time, and he revealed some very interesting details, specifically on Nick Robertson, but also some interesting things surrounding Max Pacioretty and what his future in Toronto could look like. So without further ado, let's just dive right into it. This is very interesting. So we know that, of course, Nick Robertson signed a few days ago on the one-year deal, and then Frank Saravalli, which we'll get into in a minute, came out and said that a trade is still likely for the Leafs forward. And Brad Treliving broke the silence. He said this, quote, "It's a fresh, clean slate with a new coach, new opportunity. So I know the last couple of days he's been here, he's excited, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in training camp." So, I mean, at this point, it's all but inevitable that a trade is probably not on the horizon, specifically for Nick Robertson. We still know in order for Max Pacioretty, which we'll get into in a little bit, to make the team, a trade is going to have to happen, but it does not seem like it's going to be Nick Robertson, because it seems like all signs are pointing to him starting the season with the Leafs, which quite frankly, I'm fine with.
Yeah, and we were joking a little bit earlier this week and on stream that Brad Treliving is working in office this week. It's been really quiet, and now all of a sudden, I guess he was working remotely the last couple of weeks and the rest of the summer. Now he's back in office and making some splashes and doing radio interviews and whatnot. And that's right from the GM himself. That does not sound to me like somebody he is getting prepared to trade or move off of. That to me sounds like he's here, he's ready, he's excited. We think he's a big part of our team, and he will be on the team. So it's some pretty exciting stuff. And we got some other news today about some potential lineup changes, which we'll get into in a separate video later this week, which may make sense now, may open the door for all of this to start making sense as to, Nick Robertson staying, Max Pacioretty getting signed, and how the lineup might shake out. But again, this is straight from the GM himself. This doesn't sound to me like they're going to move off this player. I'm happy about it because the whole time I've been saying he should stay on the team. I feel like his future is very bright with this team. And if he plays in the top six, I feel like he can, sky's the limit. His ceiling is like, he's an unbelievable player. So I'm excited about it. Doesn't look like they're going to move off the player.
No, and that's a very good sign for you, Darius, especially because you're a big Nick Robertson fan. But just in general, as we approach training camp, like Brad Treliving said here, they're looking forward to seeing him in training camp. And I mean, we were lied to by a lot of different reporters, and whether they've been intentionally lying, whether they're just getting fed bad information. Obviously, Frank Saravalli and Chris Johnson have kind of been making similar reports dating way back to at the start of the offseason, all the way to just a couple weeks ago when they said, hey, I'm almost positive Nick Robertson's going to get traded. And then Darren Dreger comes out and says he's going to get signed. And then right after the signing, you see this here, despite the new contract, belief is Robertson is still more likely to be traded than open the season with the Leafs' solid interest in Robertson. So despite all of that, he is going to remain a Leaf. At least that's what it seems like. A trade at this point would be very surprising to me because, I mean, I don't think he'd say that. That being said, if he was going to get traded, I don't know if Brad Treliving will come out and say that anyway, but I don't think the frame of his message would be as clear as this. He says he's excited. He's excited to be here, and which correlates with the Darren Dreger post and report about him being excited to start with Craig Berube. So I'm super excited about this. And Nick Robertson is going to be a very key part of this team going forward. And once training camp starts, we'll have our answer for sure. But any quick thoughts on this before we move on to some very interesting things about Max Pacioretty, of all people?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like, I don't think Brad Treliving would come out and say they're going to trade him at this point anyway, because that would kind of, devalue him in a way. Like, obviously, every team would then again know that they want to move off the player. So I don't think he would do that. But he's talking about not just his thoughts on the player, but how the player is feeling coming to training camp, that Nick Robertson himself is happy to be here. He's excited to get going with a new opportunity. So I'm excited to see what the player does with the opportunity. It's clear to me that he's going to be on the team. It didn't make sense to me to go through that whole situation, sign him, and then still look for a trade. So he's going to start the year with the Leafs, and I'm excited to see what he does this year.
And speaking of new Leafs, or guys that we're excited to see, personally me, of course, I'm a big Max Pacioretty guy. Brad Treliving was asked if Max Pacioretty would need to fight for a spot in training camp, and he responded, my expectation is he's going to be with us, but everybody's got to sort of earn their spot here, which is the easiest way of him saying his spot has been given to him, but I have to pretend that he has to earn his spot because it looks bad for the other Leafs players otherwise. It's basically what he's saying. Unless things come out and he gets hurt, it is almost he is going to start the season with the Leafs. And here's the full quote from what he said. We brought Max in. It was probably a month ago now, maybe 3 weeks ago, for a couple days here where he was very open, obviously going through a medical exam, but he got on the ice for us. And just seeing where he was at, he feels that he'd had a couple of years here, 2.5 years, where he hasn't had an opportunity to train. Right? It's been rehabbing, and he came back last year and jumped in sort of halfway through the season. So obviously the injuries are the big question mark with Max Pacioretty. His agent came out and said that he's going to play with the Leafs this year on a standard contract. So obviously Brad has to say that he still has to earn his spot. And that is true. If he comes out in training camp, looks completely terrible, maybe gets himself injured, then there's no guarantee. But it's about as close of a guarantee as possible for any PTO player that the Leafs have probably ever had, but especially this offseason, to make the team. I'm pretty encouraged with this news. It seems like they did their due diligence pretty heavily surrounding the injury, and they went through a very delicate process and very deliberate process regarding signing him and before they signed him. And it looks like he's going to be a pretty big contributor for the Leafs this year, which is my prediction and my hope on the year for him.
Yeah, so obviously, like you said, Alan Walsh, his client, or sorry, not his client, his agent came out the other day on Twitter and said that, yes, it's a PTO. We're signing a PTO, but it's with an agreement in place to basically have a standard contract going forward once the season starts. But like you said, this is a bit of insurance for the Leafs because it is a PTO. And if he does get hurt, let's say, hopefully not, but if something were to happen in training camp or if he's not performing well, they don't have to sign the player. So I do agree with Brad Treliving there where, he does have to come in and still earn his spot. And obviously he's going to say that nobody's spot is just automatically earned on this team, except for a select few, of course, because of the salary cap, and how much they make. But I do like this. It is encouraging. Like you said, I was on the fence about this signing because I think Pacioretty might be, a little bit on the older side. And of course, he has that injury trouble the last couple of years with the exact same injury back to back. So I was worried about that. But obviously he came in, he's feeling good. He's been rehabbing it. He's been training, which he hasn't had the opportunity to do the last couple of years. And he did a physical with the Leafs, and the Leafs passed him, and they're signing him to a contract. So if that is the case, then I'm starting to get a little bit more excited about it and looking forward to see what he can do with the team. Time will tell because I'm still kind of on the side that maybe they should have went with somebody else, maybe given somebody who's a little bit younger a chance, but he could be useful for the Leafs. So I'm excited to see what happens there. And obviously they've done their due diligence. So I'm on board with that as long as, they looked into it and everything looks good, then that's fine.
Yeah, and obviously the biggest question mark with him is injuries. Even last season, like we keep mentioning, he was fairly productive when he played on the ice, averaging about 14 minutes a game. So he's still a productive player. And he said, again, Pacioretty came in a few weeks ago for a medical and to meet the brass. All went well. He signed the PTO, and it seems like he is going to start the season with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But let's keep in mind, they still have to continue to explore the trade market to free up that cap space. So it seems like despite all of this happening and a Nick Robertson trade probably unlikely at this point, a trade will have to occur for the Toronto Maple Leafs to sign Max Pacioretty to that standard NHL contract. And that's the biggest thing that is going to happen here. But if it's not Nick Robertson, which doesn't seem like it's going to be, David Kampf's name comes up, Connor Timmins, a lot of these guys we keep mentioning are becoming more and more likely to get traded, and we'll start to know soon as training camp starts to really approach here, because I'm sure they want to get most of this finalized before training camp starts. But after all this, we were pretty heavily lied to, Darius, and this could even date back to the Mitch Marner stuff. Even him, all these reports about him getting traded. Still got Nick Robertson and still got Mitch Marner to open the night.
Yeah, Mitch Marner will be a Maple Leaf for the season. What happens with that, I guess we'll find out later this year or next offseason, I think is more likely. And then I think Nick Robertson's going to play the year with the Leafs, and he's going to be given every opportunity to succeed, and they're going to work with him. So that's going to be exciting to watch. And Max Pacioretty is going to come in and do his thing. It's just a question of if he can stay healthy and who moves out to make room for that too. It could be Yarncroke. We haven't mentioned that either. David Camp looks like the obvious one that a lot of people are talking about. Easton Cowan might make the team. So there's a lot going on here. There's going to be a lot of healthy competition, which makes for a good training camp, something to watch this year. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. What do you think about all this? Do you think Nick Robertson, despite his comments, are going to be traded? Let us know. And what are your thoughts on Max Pacioretty? Do you have more optimism after these comments? We'll see you guys soon. Let us know.